Chapter 10.5, exercises 11 through 26. This section 10.5 in the book has to do with binomial expansions. And so we're going to go ahead and go through and process the odd number problems. In exercise 11 through 26, find the coefficient of the given term in each expansion. So we have this first one, we have quantity x minus 2 to the 10th power. Find the fifth term. Now, to find the fifth term, we're going to just kind of count out till we get to the fifth term. And the first term is going to be x to the 10th power. And then we're going to have this negative 2 to the power of 0, which is going to be 1. And some coefficient out front. That coefficient is going to be 1. And then we have plus, well, we have x to the 9th power. And we're going to have this negative 2 to the first power. And it's not only that, it's taking it and moving it. There's a coefficient out front as well. Okay, so that's going to be our second term. Our third term is going to be some coefficient out front. Then x to the 8th power. And this negative 2 to the power of 2. And then our fourth term is going to be some coefficient times x to the 7th power and negative 2 to the 3rd power. And our fifth term is going to be some coefficient times x to the 6th power, and then we have negative 2 to the 4th power. Okay, now we need to find what this blank is. Well, to do that, we're going to use our NCR, N choose R, in our probability menu in our calculator. And sometimes we'll see it written like this, with the big parentheses with the N on top, which is, in this case, 10. And then the R down below. Well, to find the R, we got to start counting from 0. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the value of R is 4. So now we can go to our calculator. And then there's, you can also take the formula using the binomial theorem, and that's going to be n factorial over r factorial times quantity n minus r factorial. Okay, in this case we're going to have 10 factorial over 4 factorial times 10 minus 4, which is 6 factorial. We could do it that way. I'm going to go to the calculator, and the function we're going to use is found by menu, 5 for probability, and 3 for combinations. And our n value is 10. We press comma, control, close parentheses, which gives the bracket, and we put 4 here. For the fifth term, we get 210. So coming back here, we have 210. And then we have negative 2 to the 4th power. Well, what we're going to have is just writing below, we're going to have 210 times negative 2 to the 4th power. Well, that's going to be negative 2 to the 4th power is going to be 16. And then we're going to have x to the 6th. So 210 times 16. Okay, 210 times 16. We get 3,360. Okay, so we go back here. 3,360 x to the sixth, and specifically we're being asked about find the coefficient. So our coefficient is going to be this number out in front of this x to the sixth. So there it is, boxed in. Next on our problem, 13, we have quantity 3, x plus 3y to the 10th, and we're looking for the 8th term. Well, the 8th term is going to be after a long list. If we start, for instance, with x to the 10th, we're going to have to keep on going down and 7 more times. What I suggest instead is starting from the right side. From the right side, we're going to have x to the 0 power, and then we're going to have 3y to the 10th power, and we're having some coefficient out front. So this is going to be our term number 11. Now, how do I know that? Because we start with term 0, and our total number of terms is going to be one more than the value of the power of the expansion. And then our next term over from the right is going to be x to the first power and 3y to the 9th power and some coefficient out front. And that's going to be, again, term 10. All right. Next, we're going to have x, instead of x, we're going to have x squared, and we're going to have 3y to the 8th power, and then some coefficient times that. And that's going to be our 9th term. Our 8th term, which is the one we're looking for, is going to be x cubed, and we're going to have this 3y to the power of 7 and some coefficient out front. So this is term 8, but when we go do the NCR, our NCR values, I'm going to put as 10. It's going to be one less. 9, 8, 7. So in our NCR, what we're going to have to use is we have to use our 10 for our n, and our R value is going to be 7. And so going to our calculator, go to menu 5.3 and 10, comma, bracket 7, we get 120. So coming back here, I'm going to fill in 120 in this blank, and we're not interested in these others to the right. And so what we're going to have is this 120 times, we're going to have 3 to the 7th power. And I don't offhand know what that is, times x cubed y to the 7th power. So 120 times 3 to the 7th power, let's look at that. 120 times 3 to the power of 7, we get 262,440. And that's going to be x cubed y to the 7th, and specifically answering what was asked in the problem. We box in our coefficient, which is 262,440. Next on our problem 15, we have quantity a plus b to the 9th power, and we're looking for the 4th term. And that's going to be And that's going to be the eighth term. A plus b to the eighth, looking for the fourth term. So what we're going to get is some coefficient a to the eighth, and it'll be b to the 0 power, plus we just subtract 1 from that, from 8. So we're going to get a to the 7th power, or actually a coefficient, a to the 7th power, and b to the 1st power. Next, we have some coefficient a to the 6th, b squared. That's going to be our third term or fourth term. It's going to be some coefficient times a to the 5th. That's going to be b to the 3rd power. So we don't have any numbers to multiply, so we're just really interested in this NCR format as 8 choose 0, 1, 2, 3. So 8 choose 3 is going to give us this number right here. So let's do that. Menu 5.3. We go to 8, comma, control, bracket, 3, the fourth term, so 56. So this right here is going to be 56. So we get 56 a to the 5th b cubed. And that's going to end up being a coefficient of 56. Next on our problem 17, we have 20x minus y to the 9th power, the 6th term. So just looking at that, we're going to be going, we can go from the left or from the right. It's going to be almost equidistant. I think it'd be slightly shorter from the right, but I'm just going to start from the left. Our first term is going to be some coefficient x to the 9th, and we're going to have this negative y to the power of 0. Then we're going to have plus some coefficient x to the 8th power, and we're going to have this negative y to the 1st power. So that's our second term. Our third term is going to be some coefficient x to the 7th, and this negative y is squared. That is the third term. The fourth term is some coefficient. We have x to the 6th, and we have this negative y to the 3rd power. Then we have our fifth term is some coefficient. We have x to the 5th, and this negative y to the 4th power. And then our sixth term, which is what we're looking for, we have some coefficient times x to the 4th, and we have this negative y to the 5th power. So on our NCR, we're going to be looking at 9 as our n value, and for our r value, we're going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this r value is less than the number, 1 less than the number of the term. So that's going to be right here. So n choose 5, or 9 choose 5. We go here to menu 5.3 and place in 9, comma, we get the bracket 5, we get 126. So 126 goes right here, and what we have is just writing this down below, we have this negative y. Well, the negative to an odd power is going to retain the negative sign. So we're going to have negative 126. We're going to have x to the fourth, y to the fifth. And when we have that, we're going to have a coefficient of negative 126, which is boxed in. Okay, next on the problem 19, we have quantity x plus 2 to the 7th power, looking for the fourth term. Yeah, I think I'm going to go from the left on this one. We're going to have our first term as some coefficient times x to the 7th, and we're going to have this 2 to the power of 0 plus some coefficient x to the 6th, and we're going to have this 2 to the power of 1 plus some coefficient. We're going to have x to the 5th power, and we're going to have this 2 to the power of 2. And finally, our fourth term is going to be some coefficient times x to the power of 4, and we're going to have 2 to the power of 3. And so in our NCR, we're going to have this n is 7, and our r value is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So the r value of our fourth term is going to be 3. So if we go to NCR in our calculator, we go to Menu, 5, 3 in our TI Nspire CS calculator, press in 7, comma, we get our bracket, and then put in 3, and we have 35. So using the 35, and then we have, just bringing this down, we have 35 times 2 cubed, which is 8. We're going to have x to the 4th power. So that's going to be 35 times 8. I think that's 280. 35 times 8. Yeah, 280. So equals 280 x to the 4th power. Well, our coefficient is just the numerical portion up front, 280. Next on the problem 21, we have 2a, 22a plus 3b to the 10th power. We're looking for the a to the 6th, b to the 4th term. So for this one, our first term is going to be some coefficient out front times 2a to the 10th power, and we're going to have 3b to the 0 power plus some coefficient. We're going to have this 2a to the 9th power, and this 3b to the 1st power plus some coefficient 2a to the 8th power times this 3b squared plus some coefficient. We have 2a to the 7th power and this 3b to the 3rd power plus some coefficient. We're going to have 2a to the 6th power, and we're going to have 3b to the 4th power. And so we're going to fill in our coefficient. So that's going to be our and numerically we'll say term 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So our R value is 4. So in our NCR format, we have our n values, the power of the binomial expansion 10, and our R value is 4. So we go to our calculator, we go to menu 5, 3, and we go to 10, which is our n value, comma, we're going to put in, I think it's 4, isn't it? 210. So 210 goes here. So what we're going to get for our coefficient is quite a lineup. Because we're going to get this 210, we're also going to get this 2, you see this 6 power outside this 2a in parentheses, we're going to get this 2 to the 6th power. Okay? And then we're going to get times 3 to the 4th power. And then times, finally, a to the 6th, b to the 4th. So 210 times 2 to the 6th times 3 to the 4th. I know 3 to the 4th is 81, but I'll just go ahead and put it all in there. 210 times 2 to the power of 6 times 3 to the power of 4, and we have this. We have 1,088,640. Million 88,640, and that's going to be a to the 6th, b to the 4th, and specifically answering the instruction of the problem, our coefficient is going to be this 1,088,640. Next, on problem 23, we have this quantity x plus 1/3 to the power of 7. So we have a fraction. And I don't know how complicated it's going to make this thing, but we'll just go through it, go through the steps. Our first term is going to be this some coefficient times x to the 7th, and then we're going to have this 1/3 to the power of 0. We know that's going to be 1. And our next term, our second term, is going to be some coefficient times x to the 6th, and then we're going to have this 1/3 to the power of 1. That's our second term. Our third term is going to be some coefficient times x to the 5th power and 1/3 to the power of 2. And then we have plus some coefficient. We're going to have x to the 4th power and this 1/3 to the power of 3. And in our n choose r, we're going to do this format. We're going to have 7 choose 0, 1, 2, 3. So 7 choose 3. Going to our calculator, we put menu 5, 3, and 7 choose, so 7 comma, we get our bracket 3 for our fourth term, we get 35. So here we have 35, and so our answer is going to be this. We will have 35, and we're going to have 1/3 to the 3rd power, and that'll be x to the 4th. Well, 1/3 to the third power is going to be 1 over 3 cubed. So 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3, which equals 27. So we're going to have 35 times 1/27 x to the fourth power. And that's going to equal the fraction 35 over 27 x to the fourth power. And so our coefficient is just this number out front, which is the fraction 35/27. Okay, the last odd number problem we're going to look at is this one here. This quantity x plus 4y to the 7th power, and we're looking for the x squared y to the 5th term. So for this, I'm going to go from the right, since our term on the far right is going to be y to the 7th. So our last term in this whole thing is going to be this, we'll say 4y, and that's going to be to the 7th power, and then our x is going to be to the 0 power. Now we're coming from the right side now, and some coefficient times that. And the next term over we're going to have is this 4y to the 6th power, and this x to the power of 1, and some coefficient times that. And the next one from the right is going to be this 4y to the power of 5. And we're going to have this x squared and some coefficient out front. So this is what we're looking at, all right? And this term here. And when we number the terms, 7 is the number of the term on the right, and 6, 5. So on our NCR, we are looking at 7, choose 5. Now if we'd started with 1 at the very first term, this last term is our 8th term. But we need to fill in this blank here. To do that, we're going to do 7, choose 5. So go to menu, 5, 3, and 7, comma, and we get our bracket 5. We get 21. So I'm going to fill in 21 here. So our answer is going to be this 21 times, well, 1 squared, that's going to be 1. Then we're going to have times 4 to the power of 5. And then we're going to have x squared y to the 5th. So 4 to the 5th power, well, 4 times 4 is 16, times another 4 is 64, times another 4 is 256. So we're probably going to get up to 256. So probably 1,024 times 21. Let me see if that's right. So 4 to the power of 5 is 1,024 times 21. So we get 21,504. And 21,504 x squared y to the 5th power. And just our coefficient by itself is this one, 21,504. And then this is problem 26, pretty similar in degree of difficulty in nature with to problem 25. Anyway, good luck on your even number problems. and thanks for viewing.